After the sacking of Rome in 390 BC, the Roman army had gone through the military reforms known as the Camillian reforms. Even though many know of this military reform affecting the army, many do not realize that this as well affected the Roman cavalry. For in the 4th century BC, the Roman cavalry went from the cavalry-designed hoplite into a more armored riding levis, in which there is limited information on this unit in the 4th century BC. But information that does exist explains that this unit was light and mobile like their arms and armor. In fact, from 2 historical accounts written by Roman historians, it is actually accounted by one Roman historian, which is believed to have once been a Roman cavalryman himself prior before retirement, indicated by his words, as he stated, and I quote, "That gone were the days of the tunics of Mars and the armor of Saul. Now comes the days of that of ragged men and ragged armor." While the other account written of the economic system by the Roman historian Socorus Paetirus actually describes arms and armor of light men, in which, after the sacking of Rome, it led to disaster, and our coffers were bankrupt. And so too we would have to live on vagabond arms and armor. In fact, these 2 accounts give a good description of the arms and armor, describing that Rome had to change its military in order for the better. The tunics that were worn, instead of being the Mediterranean style of linen, were of a thickened wool design. As well, properly designed sleeves were actually manufactured, indicating that this would actually perfectly help the user to not get tangled with his tunic when he's fighting. The belts that were used actually were indicated of a type of certain design. In fact, it's highly believed that the belt buckles or the belts themselves would have been highly decorated, depending on the user. However, this would still depend on the wealth and status. Footwear that would be worn, if they could, would actually be mostly of that of an everyday common footwear. It is highly believed, though, that footwear probably might not have been worn on the field of battle, possibly because, one, the person was riding on a horse, indicating that there might have never been a use of it in the process. Greaves were also worn to actually be used for protection. These designs would have a Hellenistic design. However, there are accounts of strapped-on greaves that were used, but it did vary from user to user. This would protect the user from downward chopping blows to their legs, if and it all happened in the process. The armor that would be worn varied from user to user. In fact, upon first reading this text, I thought these military units were actually wearing linothorax. However, this possibly might not be the reason. In fact, one account actually states that if the armor was damaged in battle, it could easily be repaired within the night. The Greek linothorax, on the other hand, not so much. This would technically take days and even months to repair, indicating that this might have been of padded armor design. In fact, another account indicates of a form of ragged armor than in which of peasant's cloth, indicating that this might have been a form of padded armor. Of what it looked like is left a little anyone's understanding, but many possibly believe it might be related to this design here, as they would believe they would actually have tassets covering both the legs and the arms. But this is unknown whether or not this was true. As well, light bronze chest armor would also be worn. It is indicated that this armor might have been inspired by the Samnite design of armor, but there is very limited information of what this armor could have looked like. Some historians actually believe that this pictorial plate might have actually evolved into different designs depending on the user's wealth, and as well that of the form of that maybe only the commanding officers could have worn it. Helmets that would be worn varied from user to user. In fact, there are different variations in designs, from the Attican-style helmets of that what you can see from Macedonia, to that of the Montefiore design helmets, which were stated to have had horsehairs and colorations that showed in the distance, or even that of an Italo-Corinthian helmet. So it did vary from user to user of what this helmet might have looked like.
Domitore
By this time, the shield had actually changed as well. Instead of the small hoplite style shield that we see with the strapped-on design, now it's a center grip style shield. This was an entirely huge game changer on the field of battle. It is indicated by a few historical written accounts that the swords that were probably used were of a straight blade design weapon. It doesn't exactly give a good example of what it looked like, but our best possible guess is that of a Roman gladius Gallius, or as well, even Celtic swords that might have actually been incorporated into the Roman military. It is unknown though which one of these was possibly the biggest one they could have used. In fact, it is stated that the swords were light but yet less cumbersome than that of the infantry design, meaning they were light and effective on the field of battle. The spear and javelins that were used were of a very mix of designs. In fact, originally, the spear was never used on the battlefield. However, javelins were. In fact, it was indicated that there was a bag strapped to the said user's belt, possibly to actually hold bundles of javelins. Of how many is possibly left unknown. But in such, these javelin heads were of a mix between barbed or of that of a said leaf-shaped light blade, so it does indicate of what it might have been. But the spear, though, was more of along the lines meant for self-defense. This design was only starting to be used by the time of the Camillus reforms, but slowly got removed afterwards. Possibly because, one, it was mainly useless on the field of battle.